Hey girl, hey, and welcome to another episode of Baddie to Baddie, brought to you by For the Breast of Us. My name is Marissa. I am the co-founder and CEO of For the Breast of Us, a community for all women of color who have been impacted by breast cancer. I am joined here by my right hand and my left hand today, Cynthia and April. Say hello, ladies.
Hey girl, hey.
Hello, hello.
So just so everybody knows, we are in a podcast studio today. This is the first time that we have ever done this. Usually when we record a podcast, we are at home. And so now we were all together in beautiful Houston, Texas. It's probably about 103 degrees outside right now.
H-Tone.
Thankfully, we are inside. So we are just going to go on ahead and get started. We have a couple of things to discuss today. As always, we thank everybody for listening. This will be raw and uncut, so just sit back and enjoy the ride. Ladies, how are you doing today? Okay, don't be quiet. I'm talking to you guys.
Doing well, thank you.
April and this voice is going to kill me. I'm good. This is so different than how we usually do this, so I'm a little frazzled.
Yeah, we are a little frazzled, and we don't have any alcohol or tequila or anything, but, you know, we'll do what it do. We know what we're doing, right, ladies?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not new to this. We true to this.
True to this.
So today we are talking about empowering women of color through advocacy, community, and education. If you know anything about For the Breast of Us, and even if you don't, our three pillars that we stand for are advocacy, community, and education. That is where we live. That is where we stand. And we want to empower all women of color who have been impacted by breast cancer through those three pillars. So to start us off, we are definitely going to talk about advocacy today. I would say we are all definitely patient advocates here, all diagnosed with some stages and some form of breast cancer. And so even though we may have not have wanted to get thrown into these advocacy streets, we are here.
Here we are.
We are here. So, ladies, if you had to define advocacy and its importance to women of color who are impacted by breast cancer, how would you define that?
It's kind of hard because I feel like it kind of comes naturally. Mm-hmm. Women of color, we are constantly advocating for ourselves, our people, our community. And so it's no different in the breast cancer space in that you just got to demand the best care, equal care, proper care. And that doesn't always happen, unfortunately, unless you are able to advocate for yourself. So,
yeah.
I think another part of it, too, is having those conversations within your family about healthcare, because, in our homes, we don't talk about what? We don't talk about money. We don't talk about health. Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about sex.
Right.
So, and which is unfortunate because those three things are very important. So having those conversations with the women and men in your family, young and old, about, what is it that's going on with you? Because you have families who have women who are being diagnosed saying, there's nobody in my family who's been diagnosed with breast cancer. Actually, that's not the case. So, starting having those conversations and having the courage to not only share with your family, but then once you have that information, telling your doctor and being honest.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that way you can get the treatment, be proactive instead of reactive, because, the healthcare community has not been kind to people of color.
Right.
So there's a lot of anxiety and resistance there. So I think it's very important to have that conversation as well when we're talking about advocacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think advocacy is important, kind of what both of you have touched on. It's just we've had to advocate our whole lives.
Right.
And so now being diagnosed with breast cancer, it's another layer on top of, not only do we have to advocate for ourselves and make sure that we receive the best type of treatment, but now it's also maybe advocating for your sisters or your mom or your cousins or your aunts.
Yeah.
And then also just making sure that the medical providers that you touch, they understand where you're coming from, the type of treatment that you need, and then also realizing that sometimes we could just say no. I don't want to go down that path.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you have the right to say that.
Mm-hmm. And I think within our communities, especially communities of color, but especially Black women, we don't ever think that it's okay to say no, or tell, especially doctors, because we feel like doctors are the end all be all. And we have to remember that they're human and they make mistakes. And sometimes they're just telling you something because that's what, the medical field tells them that that's what they can do. But it's okay for you to ask questions and push back on them.
And that's important. I think a lot of us navigate healthcare. What the doctor says is just what we do. And I've learned in this space that I have options, that I can say no, that I can push back. Why not that? And I think we'll get to the education piece, but that's why the education is so important, because you have to know what the options are. I don't want to do that, but can we try this? Or I heard about this. What do you think those outcomes would be for me? So,
Yeah. And speaking of advocacy, kind of diverting a little bit to it, but there's a thing, especially in our community, especially we're kind of like with social media, we're in the influencer space as well. A lot of people don't want to call themselves influencers, but I call them patient influencers, which I don't think that there's anything bad with that term. I think a lot of people are going to start embracing it. But, there is somewhat of a difference between, advocacy and being an influencer. But when it comes to being a patient advocate, I think we see people who are quote unquote, super advocates from what people look like. I think people may look at me and think that I'm a super advocate, which I wouldn't necessarily say that, but if you believe that, then cool. But when it comes to advocacy, what is it? How can we empower women of color to realize that advocacy comes in all different types of levels?
I think it's finding your lane, right? I remember at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a meme and I kept it, and it was like, there were like all of these roles. You can make flyers. You can amplify somebody's voice by sharing their posts. Like, you don't have to be on the street necessarily with a picket sign, but like, where is your comfort? Because y'all know, I'm people. I'm the team introvert, and I can be behind the scenes doing the graphics and, tech and all of that, and be working for the breast cancer community without having to be the one that's necessarily always front and center. So it's about just finding your space, finding where you're comfortable, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah. April, what would you say?
You got to understand, what is your why? Like, why are you advocating? What is important to you? And I'm an extrovert, but at the same time, I have a love and hate. First of all, I'm a Gemini.
Say no more.
Say less. Say less. I have a love and hate relationship with social media. So I can be real hot on social media one day and be real cold for like months. But my why is I want to be able to make connections with people in the community who have questions, who have concerns, and, be that person for them who was my sister Ebony, who she was for me. So, everybody has a lane, everybody has a space. And some spaces don't necessarily mean, like you said, up front and center. It could be in the background and you're still making an impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I have been in breast cancer advocacy for, I'd say, about 7 years now. I'm about 8 years out from my diagnosis, so I didn't really get into advocacy, until I was about a year out from treatment, I would say. And I would say from my perspective, a lot has changed. There's a lot more people, advocating on social media. I would say the voices of Black women in particular are being elevated. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but when it comes to women of color, I feel like Black women have a louder presence and voice now. So speaking of that, which we've had a recent discussion within our small group, not us here, but even just some of our Baddie ambassadors that we have, is uplifting and raising the voices of other women of color, particularly Hispanic women, Asian women, Native American women. So as they kind of turn to us Black women and see what we're doing, how can we in turn empower them without it feeling like it's a burden? Because one of the things that I've talked to you guys about is I feel like a lot of times the burden and the weight is always shelved on Black women. Like, we have to do more, we have to do this, and it can get tiring. But how can we help empower them more?
I don't know that we can necessarily empower or push to the forefront. I think we continue doing what we're doing is educating and offering a space for them, right? And we talk about even within our own Black culture, for ethnic minorities, you sit in the corner and be quiet. So I think it's going to be a learning experience for them to come out of the shadows and talk about things that they talk about even less than we talk about, you know?
Right.
And so I think it's showing them and continuing to invite them to the table, providing a platform, providing opportunities, whether it be podcast episodes, our campaigns, going live with us, all of the things that we do. And like for a lot of us, it's seeing yourself. So each one bring one. So the more we can get other women on board and they show up, then I think other people see that they can do it too.
I agree. You know, have y'all heard of the book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria?
No, I haven't.
Really? And it's a book about former president of Spelman College. I think her last name is Tatum.
I don't remember that.
Well, she wrote a book, and it's basically talking about, you know, we gravitate to the people who we look like, who we can identify with. So, as Cynthia said, having a platform, I think that's all you can do. And then, you know, just making connections. Again, going back to your why, going back to what part of advocacy you want to do. But I think the more work we do and the more people see us, the more they'll be open to join or to speak up.
Right.
So
I think we're doing what we can.
I think culturally, it's a hurdle that we know we have to work to jump, right?
Right.
Because, I mean, for a lot, like my grandmother would be floored that my titties are on the internet somewhere. You know what I mean? You know, so, and we're just a few generations removed from being quite so private. But for a lot of ethnic minorities, absolutely, hell no, you can't go do that. You can't talk about these things. You cannot show yourself in that way. And so I think the more we just provide opportunities, and like you said, people cling to what they know, so they see more of themselves in it, they'll want to explore it more. And so we're recruiting, guys. Asian, Native, Southeast Asian, Hispanic, all of that. This platform is for all of us. It just so happens that
we're Black.
We're Black.
We're Black. You know, so I'm not sorry about that either.
Loudly, proudly Black, but unfortunately sometimes you just see our faces, and so it seems like that's what it is. But no, Marissa is very intentional about her all women of color, and I rock with her. And so come join us.
Absolutely.
And thank you. Well, shifting over into our next pillar of community, this will actually be a good question for both of you. Don't be looking at me like that, April.
I'm just looking at you. I'm just looking.
Do you consider yourself a mentor within the breast cancer community space?
Absolutely.
Why?
So, we all have a gift, right? And I am a firm believer that my gift is speaking. And immediately when I was diagnosed, I began sharing my diagnosis. And the elders in my family were like, "Are you sure you want to share this? You sure you don't?" I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to keep this a secret. So I feel like that's my calling in life, is to do what I'm doing, because I'm also an educator, school counselor. So because I started sharing my story, people in my family started telling their stories. And then my family started talking to their friends, and then their friends started reaching out to me. You know, I have friends who'll come up to me and be like, "Girl, I feel something," and take my hand and put it on their boob, like, boo, I'm not a doctor. But I think being a mentor means that people trust you and they can confide in you about what's going on with them in the most intimate way. So absolutely, definitely think that I'm a mentor to women and men dealing with breast cancer, because I've had some very close friends diagnosed with breast cancer who are male. So, what you think, Sam?
Yeah, because you're like, you don't like, you said,
You don't like
coming
people.
out the house. You don't like people.
So
Yeah, she does like people.
speaking is absolutely not my gift.
I don't know if I can
Probably
agree
just
with
because I
that.
don't do it.
You-
But I would say mentor, educator. When I think about even the gala, and I had, students that I work with volunteer, I think about my nieces speaking on panels, and I see people get it. I think about teaching self-breast exams at PMUCon, so I can feel and see the impact, and I think that's really special. And for me, I am now the first of 3 sisters in my family diagnosed. And so while, like April, I knew I was going to share my story online, I just never imagined that I would be helping my sisters.
Right.
And having even just been through it first gave them a different perspective. And so, by default, I don't think you have a choice. Yeah. And we all know people will call you in a heartbeat. So-and-so, this complete stranger got diagnosed. Call them, please.
Can you talk to
my neighbor?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that is the one thing I hate doing the absolute most.
Really?
Because it's just so uncomfortable to me. But I always feel so good once it's done. And I know how important that first connection can be in talking to somebody who's been through it. But it is the most awkward thing in the world.
What part of it, though? Like, what
all
part
of
is
it.
awkward?
I don't know you. My mama met you in the grocery store 3 hours ago. And I'm talking to you now. But, it's so necessary.
Yeah. I can see it's kind of, for me, it's awkward in the fact of, it's almost like people want you to give them medical advice or something, and I'm real teetering on that because it's what worked for me, may not work for you, and vice versa. And always just wanting to tell people well, you can ask these questions or you can go about it this way to kind of give them, because really we want to give people that power back, right?
Right.
Because you already feel when you're diagnosed with breast cancer, something's taken away from you, and you feel you don't have any control and no type of power with anything.
Right.
And so you want to be able to give that power back to them. So kind of just sharing little nuggets, here or there. I hate public speaking as well.
Yeah, right.
I really do. I absolutely hate it.
And y'all do such an amazing job at it.
Thank you. But it's hard.
Yeah, it is really hard.
Yeah, it's hard, but we are built to do hard things.
Allegedly, that's what they say.
We are.
And I just wanted to segue while we're on community. I woke up this morning thinking about y'all and where we are. I randomly responded to a post for the rest of us Baddie Ambassadors. A few short months later, we had a retreat, and y'all were complete strangers to me.
Yeah.
And look, now we wake up in the same bed.
Yeah.
Y'all are family.
I thought you were going to say you woke up this morning and was like, why the hell these bitches in my bed?
No, but seriously, what a community can be built.
Yeah.
And that's special.
Yeah.
And that's real special.
And I think that's the biggest thing, for the rest of us, was built. We started as just a community.
Right.
Because, myself and then Jasmine, that other co-founder, we knew other women were being diagnosed, especially young. I was diagnosed at 35. She was diagnosed at 26. And we knew that young women were being diagnosed with breast cancer, but we couldn't find them.
Right.
Even for me, when I searched the breast cancer hashtag, it was just all white women, all pictures of white women.
All white women all the time.
I'm just okay, but I know I'm not the only one.
Right.
I know there's other women out there who have been diagnosed at a young age too, so how can I find them? And so for the rest of us, I think first and foremost, and I won't even say I know first and foremost was built on community.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm so strong about community and doing things for the community as a whole, and making sure that they have some of the things that I didn't have, that you didn't have, that you didn't have.
Right.
And, even if they are 2 years out from their diagnosis or 10 years out from their diagnosis, just being able to connect with other women who, one, look like you, who can get it, who you could just key with.
Yep.
And not have anything to worry about. And even if you don't talk about breast cancer, at the end of the day, you found somebody y'all is my sisters.
Absolutely.
I would have never even met you if it wasn't for breast cancer.
Right. And we don't talk about breast cancer all day, every day. But the fact that when we do need to talk about it, y'all get it is special.
Right. Yeah. So community is definitely a powerful thing.
It is.
I hate that whole breast cancer, but
right. Like it's the one gift we get out of breast cancer.
Right.
And, we didn't choose breast cancer, but we chose each other. And I think that's special.
Yeah.
And it goes a long way every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll come back to community in just a second, but let's go on to education. So from your perspective, what or how has For the Breast of Us helped within the education piece within our community, especially for women of color?
I had a elder say to me once, we were having a conversation about doctors, and she said a doctor goes to school and they get all this education to practice, meaning that they are, it's not a hard set, this is the path that you have to go for whatever your diagnosis is. Mm-hmm. So, and it also says that in practicing that it's a partnership between two people in agreement. We're agreeing, for you have your medical perspective and I know my body. So when I said all of that to say, with education, it's important for us to also, because we have participated in advocacy trainings, we've gone to Project Lead, we've learned about the scientific side of breast cancer. And as we're becoming more educated in that way, we're able to get that information and break it down into language that others can understand, because that's the important part of it as well. Mm-hmm. I just was having a conversation with a cousin a couple of days ago, and she was saying that her doctor said to her that she didn't have to worry about having a genetic mutation because it's not on her mother's side of the family. Excuse me?
Right.
And this, my breast cancer diagnosis, I have a genetic mutation on my father's side of the family. Mm-hmm. And my cousin and I are connected through my father's side of the family. And so I said to her, you do know your doctor don't know what they're talking about, right? I said, common sense will tell you that. Like, I'm your first cousin. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. After I was diagnosed, 4 of my first cousins were diagnosed with breast cancer. We all have the same genetic mutation. Mm-hmm. Hello? Unless your daddy's not your daddy.
Right. That's a whole nother story, though.
Right. Yeah, well, we don't want to get into that. Right. But, I mean, just, it's so important to educate, like you said, doing your own research as well as, making suggestions and having conversations. The tone of a conversation totally changes with your care team once they realize
you know what you're talking about.
You know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Which is sad.
Yeah. And but I think it's empowering. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And so you can't have the conversations about, is this the best treatment option? How are we going to preserve my fertility? Mm. Is my vagina going to be broken? Y'all know I'm the vagina girl. Is my vagina going to be broken if we do A, B, C, and D? Mm-hmm. And so you have to do your research. You have to seek out things like For the Breast of Us, where they're educating in a way that's at your level, that makes sense to you, that gives you good understanding, because otherwise you don't know what you're missing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
And you wouldn't even know that this treatment plan exists, or this is a surgical option, or this or that, if you don't do your research. Because sometimes they're not going to present that all to you. Mm-hmm. They're not going to say, there are 3 doors, let me explain, you get to pick which one you go through. They're just going to say, this is what I like to do, this is what I generally do, but that may not fit me. Not everybody is the same. And so education is key, but meeting people where they are. Right. People aren't going to pick up some big textbook and read. Right. So our social media posts, our podcasts, reels, memes on the internet, get people educated while they don't even realize it's happening.
Right.
Right.
And then you look up one day and you're like, shit, I know a lot about breast cancer.
Where did y'all, when you were first diagnosed, where did y'all go for information? I had the pink book. The breast book. Is the Nurse Navigator
Dr. Susan Love?
No, not that. No. It was it goes through everything, like the type of chemotherapy, drugs, the different types of surgeries for reconstruction. Y'all didn't get that?
I didn't do anything quite that formal. And I want to say that most likely we just went and did what the doctor said. It just all happened so quick and you're making decisions. I learned a lot more on the back end.
Oh, okay.
For me, at least. I don't even recall. I mean, I knew lumpectomy because I had a lumpectomy when I was 15. Lumpectomy, mastectomy, like I knew chemo, radiation, but I didn't know like a deep flap and all of the other things that are out there. But I just knew the very basics. But I don't recall until like a project lead, until being deliberate, going through the Know Your Lemons training, like really sitting down and going through a formal kind of lesson plan about breast cancer and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get that book, but then I also have a background in healthcare.
Right.
So I was able to just kind of ask like the doctor that I was working with, like, this is what they're talking about, my treatment options. Like, what do you think? I was able to kind of just ask a couple of different people around. And then I've also worked with cancer patients, so I kind of knew, you know, this and that. But, you know, one of the things when I was diagnosed, like, I didn't know that there were different types of breast cancer.
Right.
What else did I not know? Just even the different types of treatment options. Like, you know, when you hear chemo, you just think, oh, everybody just gets the same type of chemo, not realizing that, that there's different types. And another thing, like we talked about yesterday, was, you know, I didn't even know what metastatic breast cancer was.
Yeah.
Like, nobody actually calls it metastatic breast cancer. Nobody was really
and what that truly means, right?
Nobody was really calling it stage 4 breast cancer. You know, and quiet is kept. A lot of people who are diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer
don't understand.
Well, not even do they not only understand, but a lot of times, you know, unfortunately, if they do pass away, even though breast cancer is the culprit, they're passing away from something else, whether that be like pneumonia or something, you know, that's just taking over their system that their body can't fight anymore.
Right.
So, yeah, I wasn't given any of that information, but I did ask a lot of questions, and I just asked for, like, a lot of the medical jargon, like, give me the background on, like, what this treatment option would be.
I do remember, like, my care team, and, of course, it was very deliberate. My oncologist was Latina, and I remember her sitting down, like, with my results and kind of explaining stuff, which I thought was very helpful, but I know a lot of people don't even get that. You know, sadly, some people just find out through my chart or whatever, you know, before anybody can even soften the blow for them.
Right.
But it is important. I've learned so much just watching other people, especially watching, you know, metastatic baddies and just seeing what they're going through.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff out there I didn't know about.
Right. And that's why I think it's important that it's up to us and just for the Breast of Us community as a whole to continue to keep educating people, you know, whether that's like educating them on a larger scale or even if it's just small things like, do you know about this?
Right.
You know, have you thought about doing complementary therapies, you know, doing traditional as well as holistic, you know, together, or have you asked them about massage or acupuncture?
Right.
You know, or do you have a nurse navigator? Have you talked to a nurse navigator? Has
people
anybody
know
introduced
nurse
you?
navigators exist. You can call the social worker, you know.
And understanding what they do.
Right.
Because, you know, when you're first diagnosed, so much information is thrown at you at one time. So, you know, you're talking to this person, that person, like, who am I talking to?
Right.
And what do you do? Or what can you provide for me? And, you know, with our community, you know, just being afraid to ask for help.
Right.
There's so much help. There's so many financial resources out there. There's so many things when you're in treatment that you can get. You can get somebody to come in and clean your house for free. You can get somebody to come and take a whole photo shoot for you and your family, you know, just, but we're not aware of that because we got to get that information and educate each other.
Right.
And I think we're doing a great job because I didn't know any of these things.
Yeah.
Back in 2016.
But you know me, I'm always hard. I'm just like, we could be doing more.
Yeah, I'm the same
but
way.
take that
But
cape
I
off,
think
sis.
we're
Take the cape off.
see, super advocate.
Well, it's not super advocate, you know. I'm just like,
I know, but I think we are making a major impact, and we continue to find new ways to expand and do it. And so,
yeah. Well, one last piece of the education is, how do you feel like women of color who have been impacted by breast cancer, how can we help them tie in survivorship and education? Because they basically go hand in hand for the most part. And so what is it about education that helps women navigate survivorship?
Just think when you know better, you do better.
Right.
You make better choices for your life. And I also think that you gain a different perspective when you've had a life-changing diagnosis. And when you spend more time learning about the options that are available to you, and, you know, when you expand your mind, a whole new world comes about. Things that you didn't think were possible are possible. Like, we were talking on the last podcast, and I was like, did y'all know that you could have a, what was that we were talking about? See, that's something you got to deal with cancer. Oh, gosh. We were talking about having, because I want to have a baby, but I can't have a baby. You can have a uterus transplant. And I'm like, what? I could have done this, but, you know, that's, with that information, you know, I might not be able to take advantage of it, but somebody, one day we'll do a podcast talking about it. Somebody's going to be able to do that because they got the information.
Right.
You know, we went live years ago talking about the financial piece of cancer, and we were talking about short-term and long-term disability, FMLA, and, you know, I had a couple ladies slide into the DM like, I didn't know that this was even an option.
Right.
Yeah, you know, so the more we talk, the more conversations we have, the more information we gain. I think that is going to change our quality of life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the same thing. Like I said, you don't know what treatment plan options there are, what surgical options. You don't know what survivorship can look like unless you do the work. And seek out the resources and the places who will share that info.
Yeah.
Like I said, getting your eggs frozen. And then there are places that'll help you pay for that. And all of the different things that exist. But even just ways to take care of yourself. You know, what kind of mental health practices can you engage in? What kind of self-care can you do? Finding just whatever your passion is and going for it. But until you kind of step into that space, you just don't know what exists. So you have to educate. You have to kind of look. And it's great that people can look and they'll find for the rest of us now.
Right.
You know, because like you said before, you're not going to find nobody who looks like you, who's in your space.
Yeah. Well, shifting back into community before we wrap this up, we have a big event, a huge initiative that we are undertaking.
So exciting!
Yes, everybody's excited. I'm excited too.
You better be.
Yeah. But we are thrilled to announce that for the rest of us, we'll be hosting what we are calling BaddieCon. BaddieCon. Survivorship Reimagined.
Baddies are coming.
It is a patient and advocate experience, and we are thrilled to be hosting this.
Yes.
It will be taking place March of, I was going to say 2026, and like that's how far ahead I'm already thinking, but March of 2025 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes.
And it will be the first. I will say that again. It will be the first exclusive conference/advocate patient experience specifically tailored and for women of color who have been
by us.
Yes, impacted by breast cancer.
Dun, 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 dun.
So we are so excited to be bringing this to our community. It is overdue for sure, but definitely the time is now. The time is now, now. We need it desperately.
Absolutely.
BaddieCon will be a 2.5-day experience where all of the women in our community, as well as caregivers, supporters, et cetera, can learn about advocacy, community, and education and how that can benefit them while they're on this journey of survivorship and realizing that survivorship is different every single day. And we are going to give them the advocacy tools. We are going to bring the community together and give them the community tools and then the education tools, so then that way they can navigate survivorship on their own terms and what that looks like. So what do you guys have to say about BaddieCon?
I am so freaking excited about BaddieCon and the impact that I think it's going to have. I mean, survivorship reimagined, y'all. Like, we want to survive. We want to thrive. We want to live the best lives possible while we can.
Yeah.
And we are, as we talk about how important it is to be educated, to find your community, to find your voice, to advocate, we're going to give you all the tools to do that.
Yeah. And have a good time.
And while we have a good time, while we sit in a room full of people who look like us.
Right.
You know, who know our own unique challenges and needs. Like, that is going to be so special, so impactful. And it's going to be a good time.
It will be. April?
I'm just excited. I'm just excited. I'm over here just daydreaming about women walking the halls and seeing Baddie. Hey, Baddie. You know, just
Yes.
the excitement of it and just seeing us come together to have a space, like Cynthia said, just for us, just to talk about things that are important to us in these breast cancer streets. I'm just excited.
I think it's dope that we're not going to a conference and scouring the speaker list to find the women of color.
Right.
To find the topics that resonate.
Nope.
Like, this conference is all about women of color and their needs.
We don't have to go to the breakout room that's just for the black girls.
Right.
Or the breakout room that's just for the, you know, the Asian girls or the Hispanic girls.
Right.
Like, it's all going to be there.
Yes.
Just,
and it's intentionally there for us.
Right.
Not by a fluke,
Right.
not by dumb luck, like designed for women of color.
Right. So to give everybody listening and watching some backgrounds, for the past 2 years, Cynthia and April have been begging me to put on a conference specifically for women of color. And I was just like, no. 2 years ago, we threw a sneaker ball here in Houston.
Yep.
It was amazing. It was beautiful, and it had everything that we wanted it to be. But while you all sit here and listen and watch us, not only do we run for the rest of us, but we also have full-time jobs and lives that we're running outside of that. And none of that is an excuse, but it's just like, it's a huge undertaking. And so for the past 2 years, when they were just like, come on, we should definitely, you know, let's not do a retreat anymore. Let's do a conference. And I'm just like, nope. And then this year I went to PMUCon with Cynthia here in Houston, and it literally changed my whole perspective on what
So glad.
a conference could be. And thank you so much to Miss Tina, who I know is here in the background listening. I feel like you should come in and talk to our listeners for a minute, Miss Tina. But her vision behind what PMUCon is and was, and as soon as I walked in and seen it and just the whole good vibes that I got from it, I was like, oh, we got to bring her on board. I want this whole experience to be like this because I know that the women in our community would love this.
And that was my whole goal.
You
See,
succeeded.
if I knew it,
Getting you to see PMUCon, because PMUCon is special. But
And what does PMUCon stand for?
Permanent Makeup Conference for Women of Color to treat the skin of women of color, which is special. So again, an intentional space.
right.
You know, and so we are taking all of our good vibes and energy and inspiration from PMUCon
Okay.
and doing it for breast cancer survivors.
Yes. And it'll be beautiful.
Well, I remember that phone call. Marissa called me, sis, you should be here. Oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, okay, great, okay. I wish I was there. So, Cynthia, big ups to you for getting her there.
Yep.
I wish I could have been there, but
known
you
that's
know.
what you were doing.
Oh, of course.
I had no idea.
I'm like,
I'm
we
glad.
need to do a conference. I've seen it done. I've seen it done immaculately. And like you said, PMUCon is not only beautiful, it's intentional.
Right.
It's
that's
second
the
to
biggest
none.
thing.
The education that's provided, the climate, the community that's built Yeah, that's what for the rest of us needed to do it similarly, but our way, you know.
Right.
And I think that's what's going to be so special about this.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Just being able to see, like, I'm just imagining seeing all the different shades of brown and Black women there.
Right.
Being able, there's definitely other conferences or retreats that a lot of the women can go to, but, I know a lot of them are probably like, well, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know, what the feeling is going to be. And we just know that BaddieCon will be that whole experience for them. They'll feel welcome. They'll feel like this is my community. This is where I need to be. And so not only are we providing that to them, but we're also layering it where we're going to, give them tools about advocacy, give them tools about education. Yes. So they get it all wrapped up into one, which it'll be amazing. So for everybody listening and watching, again, BaddieCon will be happening in March of 2025. Stay tuned for everything that will be happening.
The baddies are coming.
Did you want to speak quickly about what came out of PMUCon and the collective and how there'll be some of that available at BaddieCon as well?
Yes, you can, before I get into my other spiel.
Okie doke. So PMUCon, as we mentioned, permanent makeup conference, hosted and brainchild of my girl, the Dr. Zuri Dale. But again, PMUCon is intentional in that it is teaching the science of permanent makeup artists on the skin of women of color, because like everything else, even our skin is different. And so we have unique needs. And so out of that came this partnership to educate about breast health. But again, as we talk about options and treatments, there's permanent makeup for women of color. Just because, but specifically for breast cancer survivors. So getting your brows done, and notice the brows are flawless.
They are.
Artistry by Zuri.
Brows on fleek.
Brows on fleek. I woke up like this. But you can get 3D areola tattoos. You can get scar camouflage. There are all of these things that can help you feel a little bit more like your old self in survivorship. And so through PMUCon, for the Breast of Us has partnered with Artistry by Zuri to create the Baddie Beauty Collective, where, again, resources, providing free and discounted permanent makeup services for women of color. And so as that is being birthed and being announced and developed, we will have some education around that and some free services offered at BaddieCon, which is going to be also the best.
Yes.
Groundbreaking, trailblazing.
Yes.
And so we're really excited about that.
And so if you are listening or if you are watching this, BaddieCon, we cannot do this by ourselves.
Right.
So we need all of the support that we can get. So if you would like to sponsor a baddie to come to BaddieCon for free, if you would like to help sponsor some of the meals that we will be providing for the women of color there, I'm like, hell, even if you just want to sponsor something because it's going to be a great and amazing cause. All of the money that is donated will go to the nonprofit arm, and that will definitely go towards BaddieCon. So if you want to go to breastofus.com, there's a link on the page where you can donate. You can also go to, I can't think of the website right now for the foundation.
breastofusfoundation.org.
There you go. You can always go there and you can make a donation there as well. And we need all the support that we can get. We have a lot of great content that will be happening there at BaddieCon. And again, any support that you could provide would be greatly appreciated.
And if you are or know a phenomenal speaker of color, please slide into our DMs.
Yes. And we want you all to come. So as soon as the tickets drop and are announced, I will tell you to definitely sign up and register as soon as possible, because there will only be a couple limited spots this first year, and they will go quickly.
You do not want to miss this.
No.
If you miss the sneaker ball, you definitely don't want to miss this.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the place you want to be in 2025.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
We'll be happy to accept the kind that jingles. But we prefer the kind that folds.
Any parting words, ladies, before we sign out for our first, in-person, in the studio, Baddie to Baddie podcast recording?
So cool.
No parting words? This is the first time. I know April's got something to say.
I'm over here trying to censor myself.
I mean,
why?
Since
when do we censor ourselves?
Right.
Because this is official.
It's not that. It's only official because we're in person. But
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. I am grateful. I want to say this because I don't think that you hear this enough. I am grateful for you, Marissa.
Absolutely.
And Jasmine. I am so thankful because when I was diagnosed, this didn't exist.
Right.
Even though I come from a family of survivors. I was the only one who was diagnosed at 35 with no children. I'm thankful that this platform exists because at the time of my diagnosis, all I saw was doom and gloom. I didn't see women thriving. I didn't see women who looked like us. I didn't know what a mastectomy scar looked like for a woman of color. And now we can't say that any longer because there's all kinds of content, and it all started with what you and Jasmine, a dream that you had. Here we are. Thank you.
Absolutely. I echo that. I remember after the retreat, again, I don't people. So that was way out of my comfort zone. And I told y'all then through tears that you and Jasmine were changing lives. And y'all are absolutely changing lives every single day. And I'm amazed at the ways you come up with to keep changing lives. And like you said, there's more to do. But y'all find ways to step it up every single time. What's new? What next? What more can we do? It's never enough.
Right.
And the community is forever changed because of your work. And I'm just grateful to be in community with y'all.
Thank you.
Look, and I didn't cry.
Yes, good job.
Look, are you going to cry? That was a question.
No, I'm actually good right now. That's good.
See, we didn't have our tequila shot.
No,
I
that's
probably
what I was just thinking.
Full on boohooing.
If we had tequila shots, it might be a whole different thing. Well, this was a great experience. We definitely have to do it again.
like it.
I love it.
Yeah.
We've been playing podcast games.
Right. We really have.
Right.
Yes. Another thing we got to step our game up on.
Yes.
But for everybody who has been listening and watching, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Baddie to Baddie. You can subscribe to Baddie to Baddie anywhere that you catch your favorite podcasts. You can also catch us on YouTube as well. Our YouTube channel is For the Breast of Us. You can also catch us on any social media platform. So Instagram For the Breast of Us, Facebook For the Breast of Us. We have a private Facebook group called Breast Cancer Baddies. Just request to join, answer the questions, and we'll let you in. It is specifically a private group for women of color who have been impacted by breast cancer, and it is a safe space. And then go to breastofus.com. Share the stories that are on there. They're written beautifully by women of color in the community, and read them and gain some knowledge and equip yourselves with some of the information there.
And start planning your outfits for BaddieCon, y'all, because it's going to be epic.
So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you later.